Colonel. I'm doing a bad Solid Snake impersonation, and I don't want to ride for Yamaha anymore. Should I rev this up to the red line and blow this sucker up? Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Hey gang, welcome to episode 318 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison, and we're back at it again with a surprisingly stacked episode when it comes to the two-wheel action, because, oh my god, MotoGP went radioactive this past weekend. On and off the track, and somehow we had a story that was even more high-profile than Valentino Rossi announcing his retirement last week. Somehow, someway, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Maverick Vinales might not be riding a Yamaha ever again. We'll have to figure that out. Might. We'll have to wait and see. More on that later on. But we also had the Austrian Grand Prix, the second run-in around the Red Bull Ring, and oh my god, what a finish!
All time.
If you have ever seen one of those Top Gear races back in the day where they're kind of deliberately staged so they end close, this was basically that.
You're not supposed to let them in on the secret that Top Gear is not entirely informational material. You're not supposed to tell them that some of the entertainment is staged for entertainment purposes.
Wait till they find out about
that iteration of Top Gear has been dead for a very, very long time. It's okay.
It's okay. It's nostalgia.
It was around for so long, we were just getting into Afghanistan.
Oh, easy. Like other countries, I think we're going to withdraw from that one. We'll talk about the fact that somehow, someway, on a wet track with slick tyres, Brad Binder found a way to win. Somehow. As a permanent rule, we now have to call him Lord Binder on this show after that ridiculous finish. So with that note in mind, let's go around the horn and let's see who we have here. As usual, we have Cam Buckley. Hello, sir. How's it going?
Hey, Dre. Just watching Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus car go slowly around Le Mans gives me just the warmest, fuzziest feeling in my heart.
We're making this a bad habit on this show, where we're just going to roast Glickenhaus repeatedly over and over again, aren't we?
Yeah, well, when you insult all your competitors, and then insult the series that you're trying to get into, and then insult other car companies making fast road cars, and then you unintentionally, and then double down on insulting sim racers, including attacking Wang Yan Martinborough for an incident that was not his fault. I have no sympathies.
When you put it like that, fair enough. Also, we got RJ Okoto here. Hello, sir.
Let me tell you how wild this weekend is, right? We had a doubleheader weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway between IndyCar and NASCAR that capped off a NASCAR race with curbs coming off of the track, a deliberate retaliatory wreck on the final lap that wipes out the front two cars, and a part-timer winning the race. None of that got in the set list. Will Power's landmark 40th victory did not get on the set list, because that's how wild MotoGP was this week.
Yeah.
Isn't motorsport great?
Yeah, Chase Briscoe really just told Denny Hamlin, you take away my world, I take away yours.
And in the end, everything comes up Dinger! Not to be confused with Colorado Rockies mascot.
Ooh, sailing close to the wind on that one, I see. It's like watching OSW. Also, we have Ryan King. Hello, sir.
Yes, and I can't believe we haven't mentioned it yet, but formerly crowned their first ever world champion.
That's right! Max Verstappen was not the first to do something again!
It's a bit of a running theme at this point.
Yeah. Oh, dear. But, also very true. We'll get into that as well later on in the show. Also, in the time since we last recorded, Me and King both got a year older. As you
Happy birthday! Happy birthday, King! Happy birthday to Dre.
Mine,
It's the birthday special.
We're recording this on the 18th. I was 29 yesterday. So me and King were the same age for like just under a week. Like, how's 28 treating you, King?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was my feeling too when I was 28. Now I'm 29 and I'm thinking, holy fuck, I'm 30 next year. It's a terrifying prospect. The midlife crisis is inevitable.
I felt that.
But,
I have felt that. The midlife crisis is coming at 30, which is like very terrifying to think, damn, is our life expectancies really shortening up that much? Or are we just really putting that much pressure on ourselves to achieve stuff before the age of 30 in society? Who can say?
Who knows?
I think the answer falls somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, something like that. But sincere thanks to everybody who wished me happy birthday. It's very nice that many people give a shit about the bubbles or the balloons showing up on my Twitter profile on that day on the 17th. Much appreciated.
Happy birthday,
Yay! So, in this episode, there is a double dip MotoGP segment, not only on the most ridiculous Austrian Grand Prix you'll ever see in your life, but also, well, let's just say, if you're an editor, this wasn't ideal, because one whole day after we recorded last week's episode,
Wait, let's set the stage.
Yeah.
Let's set the stage for our viewers, our listeners who listened to last week's episode when you said, and I quote, "For once, a bad weekend wasn't Maverick's fault."
Thank you very much.
I'm mad as
Thank you.
hell at this job, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm going to pee directly into the deep fryer in this McDonald's.
Oh my god. Yes, I did say that. I did say that on last week's episode. Thinking it was just, he stalled the bike and he just didn't have pace at the end. He's probably just chucked this one away. Turns out it was a lot more sinister than that. And we all found out about that literally one day after we finished recording last week's show. Thanks a bunch, Yamaha. Way to go. So we will get into what I adequately nicknamed the Maverick Vinales LP Volume 2 later on in the show. Also, we'll be talking the Formula E season finale at Tempelhof, where, as King alluded to, Formula E did indeed crown its first ever world champion. It was Dutch, and it wasn't Max Verstappen, and we had yet more carnage.
And once again, the trend of the BMW CEO handing another brand the victory trophy continued.
Ooh, the pain. And they had a shot to win it all as well. We'll get into that as well a little bit later on. But places you can find us in the meantime real quick. We're on youtube.com/motorsport101. We're on facebook.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter at motorsport_101. Our Twitter handles are on the screen if you're watching along. If you're listening in, it's at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at Ryan Eric King, and at CBuckley917. We're on Instagram at motorsport101. Pod, I should say. I almost missed it again.
I need
to
point out one thing very special. I'm sorry to interrupt this plug session, but we got a very nice number of posts on the podcast. We just need.
Let's go.
We need to sunset this account immediately.
Yeah, we're starting over, gang. Give me a couple of minutes. And then while that happens, you can also back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of the audio versions of our episodes. You can upgrade to the video versions for $10, as well as getting access to the supporters club of our Discord server, where you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded. Thanks to everyone that's in their chat listening right now. Zoe, Vic, Rezi, I see you in there as well. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. But in the meantime, I can put this off no longer. Let's get into MotoGP's Austrian Grand Prix and the Finnish scene around the world.
Folks, what the hell was that race? MotoGP Austrian Grand Prix. Red Bull Ring. Holy shit, what drama. We had a race that took place quite literally in the middle of a lightning storm in Spielberg, Austria. Rain was always in the air as we saw it incredibly Rain was always in the air as we saw an incredible early fight between Francesco Bagnaia, Fabio Quartararo, Marc Marquez, and the two Pramac Ducatis of Jorge Martin and Johan Zarco. But with 6 laps to go, the rain just started falling. It started just pissing it down. Majority of the leaders pit in for a wet bike, wet tires and all that. But one dude decides, I'm going to see this out all the way to the end. It's Brad Binder. He's going to continue on slicks. He had a 33-second lead on the chasing group, and with just barely half a lap to spare, Binder was able to limp over the line to take a miracle second victory in the Premier class over Francesco Bagnaia, who quite literally passed 5 bikes in a span of 2.5 quarters to finish second, and Jorge Martin following up his first win with a 3rd place finish. Luca Marini and Iker Lecuona finished 5th and 6th. That's the best finishes of their career. Folks, what in the fuckity shitting? You can bleep these out for facts, but fucking fuck. What was that race?
Yeah.
That's all you can really say about that finish is just a selection of different swears.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the James Rolfe approach to reviewing motorcycle races.
I mean, this was all... The thing is, right, people are just saying, oh, just a great race with a great finish. This was already shaping up to be a classic before it started raining hard. Like...
We had 2 Scotty nominees for Fabio Quartararo and the people around him on 1 lap!
Yeah, on 1 lap. He swept around the outside of Zarco and Marquez, going up and towards turn 3, just on pure braking power alone. The man is a nutter. Like, this is a man with a 43-point championship lead, and he's pulling off banzai overtakes like he's Valentino Rossi in his prime, on a slightly damp circuit. It was utterly ludicrous stuff. So, like, even before people want to say, oh, this is just a great race of a finish. Like, this was ludicrous before the rain came down. The rain coming down took it to the stratosphere. This was ridiculous. Like, I remember the conflicting emotions watching this live. You had Binder and Espargaro being the big 2 that didn't come in. You had Valentino Rossi briefly running 3rd, thinking, oh my god, is he going to get his 200th career podium in his final season? Like, there was already a big helicopter display ready to go saying thank you, Valley, on his final visit to Austria. And that would have been topped off with a podium, and we didn't quite get it. And if anyone's seen the final lap, I don't think I've ever seen MotoGP bikes in race trim traveling so slowly.
They look like road bikes. They look like they were commuting to work, because MotoGP bikes, they run carbon brakes that are exposed out in the air. When you get rain, all the temperature goes away. It's gone. That's why the wet bikes run steel brakes. So he had no grip and no brakes on a bike set up for dry conditions.
No brakes, no grip, just vibes. Only vibes, and it worked.
He had just enough margin, because the first of those who had pitted for wet bikes and not crashed, Pecco Bagnaia, was, 15 seconds faster on the final lap?
15 seconds faster on the
Gained about 8 places through Sector 2 alone, and just came about a sector short on track.
You ever see those memes of what it's like when you order through Amazon Prime Next Day shipping? This is not an endorsement.
At 11:59.
Pecco Bagnaia was the embodiment of that. He was that Prime driver who was just cutting and weaving his way through traffic, doing about 145 in a 20 zone, trying to get that package to you next day. Because that's what you ordered.
I think he almost ran into the back of Lecrona going towards the final sector. He's just carrying that much more speed.
You have to go the long way around on the around turn 8, coming up the hill towards the last 2 corners, where all the other guys are like, let's not go wide. And it was like there was bikes everywhere. Elish was set for a podium. He ran wide at turn 6. Rossi ran wide at the final corner. Binder deliberately took a track limits penalty on the final corner to avoid.
It got a 3-second penalty, but it was okay.
Yeah. Didn't matter. He only won by 9 seconds instead of 12. I know the gap sounds enormous. With the rain coming down hard, I reckon 2 miles more, Bagnaia wins that race.
Not even one more sector. He was so much faster.
Yeah, it was a problem that was going to get exponentially worse, and he just about timed it to perfection. On another day, it could have easily been Jack Miller and Johan Mir, because they were actually the first of the leading group to come in. If anything, they were 1 lap too early. Which is crazy.
Everyone who swapped bikes was too early because the rain, came down a little bit, then subsided, and then right at the end just chucked down.
Yeah, final 2 laps, really. Final 2 laps is when they really started making gains. I thought they'd left it too late on first impression, and it didn't quite turn out that way. But, what an unbelievable race. Brad Binder is a certified nutter.
Lord Binder, stand for our Lord Binder.
He's
King, your man's on home soil for KTM.
Repping the Haley mulch gear. I appreciate that choice of shirt, Dre.
Yeah, it's a good shirt. But that was the most balmy of finishes I have ever seen.
And that's not even mentioning, some guy we used to see lead a lot of races was finally back at the front on a right-hander circuit. Marc Marquez was ridiculous in this race, and unfortunately, pushing just too hard to try and... He had such a margin over everyone else in the wet. He had pulled a couple seconds and just pushed too hard and dumped the bike at turn 1.
Yeah.
Because he knew he was going to have to go... Yeah, he had to have pushed 100% to try and catch Binder.
It's already sad enough that Honda doesn't get a farewell F1 race because we just got the news the Japanese Formula 1 Grand Prix got canceled today. It's worse when Honda still hasn't made a good-ass bike.
Yeah.
There was I will say there was a step forward this weekend. All weekend, Mark looked a lot more like his old self. Also thanks to some painkiller injections in his arm because,
It helps. Right-handers, right shoulder. Big problem. What
should have been another day of potentially taking some points out of Quartararo. Well, Zarco binned the bike.
Yeah,
and even with an awful finish for Quartararo, having fought for the podium all race and then being caught out in the Yamaha's very, very weak performance in the rain, he left with more points than he entered with.
Yeah. And he finished 7th on the day, and he still extended his championship. It's like Alex Palou at Nashville all over again. Wasn't really in contention at the end. Didn't have a particularly good day himself. Still made gains. He's got a 47-point lead as we head towards Silverstone next weekend.
What a finish that was!
Yeah,
it was just total mayhem.
King,
yeah,
I need to hear from you, buddy. Because that's your manufacturer. You are the self-professed day one KTM stand. Would you ever think you could have a finish this good?
Oh no, I definitely thought we were losing this race.
I don't know, what was your reaction when you see Binder stay out was all the other leading bikes pull in?
I was like, there's no way he's going fast enough to keep this lead. This is over. I don't know what move they were thinking.
I think, are we going to fumble the bag to win Aprilia?
I'm in a big Patrick Ewing head coaching Georgetown move. That was a bad shot.
Have you ever shot that shot? Have you worked on that shot?
It was either going to be really good or really, really bad.
Oh, give that... Whatever you gave him on that 3-year contract, it wasn't enough. Back-to-back years, KTM pulls off ridiculous finishes to win a race. Absolutely ludicrous stuff. Gentlemen, is there any other motorsport finishes all-time that you could think of that are on that level of ridiculous?
Everybody's going to make the obvious comparison to Brazil F1 2008 because
Yeah.
the conditions and the way they played out, that the drizzle turns into a sudden downpour, and all of a sudden the whole scene just completely spirals out of control. Next thing you know, cars are going 15 seconds a lap faster on the final lap than they were before. What I want to say is this. that is an all-time good finish.
I've got one that the NASCAR viewers of the show will remember. 2011 Talladega, in the waning days of the tandem drafting. 3 wide, 2 deep, Jimmy Johnson pips the Roush duo and the other Hendrick duo by a couple thousandths of a second, with cars in the wall. That's about it.
I'm a little bit biased. I was going to say IndyCar at Texas in 2016. To be
Same
fair,
vibe.
the entire final restart is pretty much them going, like, at one point they're 4 wide going into turn 3 at Texas, and Simon Pagenaud did the very smart thing.
Yeah, my man is just like, you know what? This is a good day for me in the championship. I'm just going to back off the throttle real quick.
I'm good.
Almost
I'm
ruined
all
by
set
Graham
with that.
Rahal hot-dogging over the line with a fist up in the air, knowing he was accidentally creating more drag for his car. Not mad that he beat James Hinchcliffe over the line that day. Not mad at all. Anyway. That's it.
Like that. 2017 Le Mans in the GT finish, Corvette v Aston Martin.
Oh, boy. I remember that one. That was
It's a short list.
it's
This was all time great. Go out of your way to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you have, if you're not one of these people that has a video pass or has a cable subscription to somebody that has, like, a cable that the coverage, like, if you live somewhere where they have a company that broadcasts MotoGP and they're at least going to put on, like, the 10-minute highlights package, go out of your way to watch that if you can't get your hands on a full race. Because that alone will get the point across. That's a good-ass finish. That's a good-ass race that we watch.
Yeah.
Solid
highlight versions are in the UK. If you want to watch the BT Sport coverage, their YouTube channel has a full highlights of that race, as does NBC's YouTube channel for the Americans out there. I'm not sure if there's geo-blocking involved in any of that, but either one of those should be good. It's an all-time great finish. It's an utterly ridiculous race in general. If it doesn't win Race of the Year, I'll be shocked, and it's already a stacked category this year. We've already had 3 or 4... Oh, yeah, good shot. Clearly you worked on it. One-legged step back.
But Ben Simmons working on those free throws in these highly edited montage clips that probably took about 200 takes to produce.
Alexa, play Fix You by Coldplay.
You know what's funny is that whenever you rev an engine too hard, you usually have to take it to service, to be fixed. And I think that's a pretty good segue, Dre, into our next segment, because as we alluded to at the start of the show, we thought the Maverick Vinales was just having a regular bad time. As it turns out...
My good
what we didn't
gracious.
know was...
I think I'm right. Where do I even
Floor is
start
yours.
this one? I mean... I allude to in the script I wrote where I just said, look, the biggest MotoGP story of the year played out again, because it involves Maverick again, only this time it's somehow even more sinister than we originally had it. As I mentioned at the top of the show, a day after we finished recording last week's show, Yamaha pulled out a shock statement on Thursday morning saying that they were suspending Maverick Vinales until further notice, citing, quote, unexplained irregular operation of the motorcycle during last week's race. The full statement read as follows, quote, the absence follows the suspension of the rider by Yamaha due to the unexplained irregular operation of the motorcycle by the rider during last weekend's Styria Grand Prix. The Yamaha's decision follows an in-depth analysis of telemetry and data over the last few days. Yamaha's conclusion is that the rider's actions, and I'm going to slow down for this bit, could have potentially caused significant damage to the engine of his YZR M1 bike, which could have caused serious risks to the rider himself and possibly posed a danger to all other riders in the MotoGP race. I did not make any of that up.
That is clear-cut, written by Yamaha themselves.
Decisions regarding the future races will be taken after a more detailed analysis of the situation and further discussions between Yamaha and the rider. End quote. We actually saw, if you watched the practice sessions, Maverick was actually still at the track. He was watching bikes go by. Probably pay attention to the Aprilia.
In full team gear, no less.
In full team gear, yeah. He said he was going to talk about it soon on his Instagram page, and he did. On Sunday, he spoke to the Italian media, not the Spanish media, because he's fallen out with them. So he spoke to the Italian media.
Who hasn't he fallen out with at this point?
There's a list. Point is that he said to the Italian media, he owned it. He fully apologised for what he did. He apologised to the team publicly, as well as obviously in private. He described his actions as, quote, a moment of frustration, and I didn't know what to do. I'll let that one marinate for a second. A day later, on Monday, Aprilia officially announced that Maverick will be joining their team. It's a 1+1 deal, so it's only a 1-year guaranteed contract for Maverick and Aprilia next year, alongside Alicia Spargo, who's also been confirmed for next season, with an option for 2023. And a couple of days later, today, a day of recording, Yamaha announced he will not be racing at Silverstone next weekend either, and there will be a final decision on his future announced probably by the time this episode goes out. Sometime around this weekend, apparently. Simon Patterson was reporting that apparently they reckon it's going to be he's not riding this bike again, basically. They're going to park him for the season.
This man is checked out.
Dear Lynn, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling.
So, gentlemen, with all that in mind, were Yamaha right to suspend Maverick for his actions?
Hell yes!
Yeah. We can laugh about it now because nobody got hurt, because that was incredibly
And that is where I want to focus here.
Yeah.
Maverick Viñales is an exceptionally talented young man. He is as fast as anyone we have ever seen, but he gets in his own head. And sometimes he gets in his own head so much that he can't really ride a motorcycle. You can't do that here. You can't do that on 220 mile per hour plus. Well, not the Yamaha, but you know.
Yeah.
Racing motorcycles, racing around other people on a track that is known to be right on the edge in terms of danger.
Mm-hmm.
If he blows that engine, it's not just a danger to him, because if that thing decides to throw a rod, could go right into his leg, and we're talking about Maverick Viñales, the retired MotoGP rider. If he oils down that track, could have killed someone. I say that with no hyperbole, no exaggeration, no conjecture. He could have killed someone.
Yeah, that's bad. We can laugh about it now because ultimately nothing happened other than he had to sit out the rest of the race.
Last year, those Yamaha engines were popping left and right. This one, despite being abused within an inch of its life, refused to let go.
Yeah, that was running this thing all the way in the fifth.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Skirmishes stay in-house. Petty arguments between a rider and a team usually stay in-house. Mm-hmm. Yamaha wouldn't have said this. They wouldn't have put out such a statement if they didn't have evidence that would hold up in a court. And boy, did we get it, because the footage that released the next day of him slamming into the rev limiter out on track, and then retiring the bike and jamming the throttle open while riding down the pit lane. There was no hiding it.
Clear as day. You do, for the record, for those who may not be as educated on MotoGP, this was 100% intentional. You can't over-rev an engine like that by accident. It was clear as day. In fact, the internet were immediately, being the sleuths that they were.
Trackside photographers went. Yeah. They went to the media after, like, what the hell was going on? Because you could hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, the photographers, clear as day, were pointing out. Tammy Gorali, who does a brilliant job as a journalist, pointed out the lap times from Maverick towards the end of the race, which MotoGP publishes on their website. The lap times of every rider is published on their website. It's the most extensive results page maybe in motorsport. They had the lap times for Maverick, and they were showing his top speeds, and they were significantly lower in the last 5 laps of that race. Basically, he was redlining it in 5th gear.
Yeah, he just wasn't shifting up out of 5th.
Yeah, around 185 miles an hour, which is not the top speed they're going down towards turn 2.
They would have noticed if there was like an actual problem where the bike just lost its top gear. Because that's happened before sometimes. But that top gear was still there.
He could have made the argument, because his bike did have legitimate issues and they changed the clutch before the race, that maybe there was a gearbox desync issue. Only when he was going down the pit lane, you could see his arm ramming the throttle open.
He wasn't slick, in other words.
He wasn't slick with it.
Yeah, it was 100% intentional, clear as day, black as white, clear as crystal, because then the replay footage came out the next day after the suspension came out. They published it on the website for people to see for free. Well done, social media departments. Good work.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. Good work. It was clear as day. You could hear him multiple times, multiple laps, redline the engine. And yeah, I can only echo Cam's sentiments. And I know a lot of people have cited, well, what about Maverick's mental health? I want to address that real quick. Because I know a few people mentioned this, like, mental health is all fine and good until the guy's on a 280-kilometer motorcycle. Look, if your head is not in the right place to be riding one of these things, you shouldn't be anywhere near a motorcycle, and that is not a warrant for you to intentionally sabotage a motorcycle that a lot of people in the back have put their blood, sweat, and tears into. That's probably Maverick on the phone now. But a lot of people put their blood, sweat, and tears into working on that bike. It is not okay for you to be revving an engine on purpose. And, of course, the safety risks that come alongside that.
He could have killed someone.
Potentially so dangerous. Absolutely. On this track, on those parameters, on that circumstance...
We just had a whole week's worth of discourse over, is the Red Bull Ring safe for motorcycles?
For the second year in a row.
In fact, we are getting a track change on the run to slow the run. We'll effectively get a chicane between what Turn 1 and Turn 2 are now that feeds out into current Turn 2, slowing it down. If he oiled that section of the track down, we would have gotten a worse version of the crash that, let's not forget, could have killed Maverick last year.
Yeah. Or even a Fee Sirens incident in Moto2 last year, where bikes went over a blind crest, and then next thing you know, somebody hits him.
Mental health is all well and good, and mental health in sports is something that for far too long didn't get talked about enough. Mm-hmm. Some people who still try to brush it off, it is incredibly important.
Yeah, of course.
If you are not in the right frame of mind, you shouldn't be on a motorcycle out on the road. You shouldn't be on one on track on a track day. You shouldn't be on one in the fastest racing motorcycles in the world, endangering your fellow riders.
Yeah, if it was that bad between Maverick and Yamaha, and we could tell, it is that bad. But I wouldn't have blamed Maverick for just being like, dude, I don't want to ride this bike anymore. I just want to sit at home.
Well, he doesn't get the choice now.
No.
Because he's parked, I guarantee you he's not getting back on a Yamaha for as long as we speak on motorcycle racing. He's done.
I want to say this. Yamaha should have made Maverick Vinales dress like Kanye West living at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They should have had him in the garage. They should have him walking through the stands wearing pantyhose on his head and just a big puffy blue jacket so that way nobody could tell that it's Maverick. That has to be his punishment.
I mean, it segues in nicely to the second question I was going to ask is this the end of him at Yamaha altogether? Because they were awaiting a decision.
Yeah. Fuck yes. He's done. And I know I know why Aprilia signed him. It's the Dan Ticktum second chance. He's got the raw talent.
Yeah. It's
a gamble that maybe they can harness his talent. They can harness his speed. This is. I don't even want to laugh about it. I don't even want to joke about it because it makes me that angry.
Yeah.
The safety aspect of it. If it were my choice, and it's not, if it were my choice, I would never see him on a racing motorcycle again.
But you know that's not how that happens. Because we're seeing that in NASCAR now. We're seeing where bad decisions get rewarded with a move up the grid. So this either goes one or two ways. Maverick Vinales suffers at Aprilia until he decides he wants to quit the sport, or Maverick Vinales somehow lucks into one of the best bikes in the grid come 2022, and he wins 10 of the first 12 races and becomes champion. And then we're talking about Maverick Vinales should represent Spain in the Summer Olympics of motorsport.
Yeah, except Maverick Vinales doesn't do that because Maverick Vinales is good for one or two token race wins where he is completely untouchable and is otherwise anonymous on a motorcycle.
He cashed that in first week of the season.
He won a race this year. How long ago does that feel now?
God, March feels like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
he's not coming back.
For me,
no.
For me personally, what's the swingy word in this? From a competitive standpoint, I actually think there's a semi-reasonable chance that Yamaha brings him back, and the only reason why I say that is because if Yamaha wants to Triple Crown, they're not going to win it with anybody else on their motorcycle.
They're not going to win it, period.
Again, Maverick is a good enough second rider where you can back them up with points. The thing is, Ducati just overtook them I looked at this up before we started recording. Ducati just overtook them in the Manufacturers' Championship. They're 3 points ahead of Yamaha right now. In the Teams Championship, Yamaha's got a 37-point lead over the factory Ducati team. If Yamaha wants the Triple Crown, they are probably not going to win it with Cal Crutchlow on the second bike. Because
they can't trust him on a motorcycle. That's just, how can you ever trust him again with one of your bikes?
That's the problem. I would not trust him with a motorcycle if I was Lynn Jarvis. However, how badly do Yamaha want to win all 3 titles? I don't know.
I tend to think that the decision will come not from within the team, but from the higher-ups back in Japan.
Yeah, that's the board's decision. You know, if the board decides Maverick Vinales is not fit to ride a motorcycle, that he's going to sit out the rest of this contract until he decides to leave for Aprilia. I mean, sorry, you just got to work with a combination.
Honestly, I don't even know if his contract sees out the year. I think Yamaha now will be looking at any conceivable way for their legal department to fire him.
You get that buyout, son.
Not that. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of clause in a given contract that if you don't ride to the best of your ability, and I think trying to blow your fucking bike up falls under that category, it probably has a clause for Yamaha to boot him out. But then the problem for Yamaha now is they've got no riders. Valentino is 7,000 years old, about to be a father. Happy to hear, and the photo shoot was fantastic.
Oh, yeah,
playing right into the bit.
New meme format just dropped. What else we got? What else we got at Moto? We got Fabio Quartararo is carrying the team on his whole back because Franco Morbidelli's busted knee seems to get worse It's a bum knee and it seems to get worse every week.
He's
and his 2019 Yamaha
the record.
His old bike
even if he's on a
work
2019 Yamaha, he's out until Misano minimum with that knee injury. Let's say in September.
Yeah, they can't rely on him. They can't rely on Cal because Cal... I love how Cal this week was, can you make the rear of the bike have less grip? I'm too used to riding a Honda. I'm too used to riding a bike that's worse than this.
Damn.
Even with all of this going on at Yamaha, they're still not as much of a mess as HRC is.
But you know what they're looking forward to is Jake Ditson and Darren Binder and Garrett Gerloff, the return of Garrett Gerloff.
They've got no they've got no second-string riders that are really showing themselves to be MotoGP material right
Does
now.
Keenan want to give Top Rack a ride? Does he want to reconsider that?
Because we didn't even mention this in the segment, but Petronas are leaving SRT altogether at the end of the season, and their Moto 2 and 3 teams are being shut down. So they're going to blow the whole thing up in Moto 2 and 3 this year.
I'm sure we'll get to it later, but I think this story about Petronas leaving them has a bit of bearing on another motorsport brand that just pulled out of another series later on in this show.
Because, it's a problem. It is, Petronas are leaving SRT, and it's looking like Darren Binder in Moto 3. Yes, Brad's brother is going to get one of those 2 seats next year. They're already talking about him getting a test later on in the season, and it's looking like
SRT survives.
Yeah, apparently they're trying to put together a bid to buy the team outright from underneath them, basically. But it's looking like, as it stands, Darren Binder will get one of the 2 seats. Maybe Jake Dixon gets the other one. He's almost certainly going to be riding as a wild card at Silverstone next weekend. You know, hometown bias and all of that. So, if you'd have said to Jake Dixon 2 years ago while riding in British Superbikes, hey, you're going to be riding as Valentino Rossi's teammate in MotoGP next year, he'd have called you crazy. But here we are.
No, you'd have been like, oh, Lord, I'm moving up that fast.
About that.
But here we have SRT, who last year was arguably the best team in the field.
Yeah.
This year, they're nowhere
Uh-huh.
due to injury, old equipment, and old rider. And next year, I don't know. I don't know if they even get to next year. It's all going to be dependent on that buyout and who they can get in, hopefully with a little bit of money behind them.
Does Spire Motorsports want to get in the motorcycle?
No, we're not doing that.
No, stop that.
But it leaves Yamaha with a situation where they've got no one to put on that second factory bike. No one who they can trust or will score the points or doesn't already have a schedule in another series. Top Rack would be all well and good, but he has commitments in World Superbike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's in the thick of a title race with Jonathan Ray right now. Only a handful of points between them.
He's in a title fight with Jonathan Ray.
Wow. It's wild. We have not been keeping tabs on Superbike World Championships a lot this season, but yeah, apparently it's getting good. Also, didn't Yamaha want to sign that one dude? Where'd he end up?
KTM.
Yeah, that'll do it.
They triggered their own in-house turmoil by keeping him away from Yamaha.
Yeah. Funny how that one all turned out. So yeah, Yamaha almost in as much as a mess as Honda is, and we joked about them on this show many a time, but Yamaha have got a lot of shit to iron out in their status because it's a mess.
It's not the bike for a change. We thought it was a bike. Maybe it wasn't the bike all this time.
The more I look at it, the more I think, Vinales is the guy they cold-shouldered Jorge Lorenzo out of the team for.
Mm-hmm.
Honest to God, I don't think Yamaha ever falls as far as they did if they don't boot him out of the team. I really don't.
They still would have had Lorenzo as an anchor when Rossi started his slow decline around 2018 sort of time.
And I think Valentino's decline began earlier than maybe we thought it did, and it was just hidden by the fact that Vinales was up and down every weekend.
Yeah, we just thought, well, Maverick's not great, Valentino Rossi's not great, the Black's probably just a bit of a stinker. Maybe there was more to it with the riders than we gave it credit for back then. Maybe, in hindsight.
Last time we talked about it, we had like our whole referendum on if you're Yamaha, do you replace all the riders? And we didn't think at the time we needed to replace all the riders except for Valentino. Well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. A messy situation. There might be a small follow-up on next week's show, depending on what Yamaha decide to do internally with Maverick. As I said, apparently they're making a final decision on that this weekend.
I can only imagine. Given, if you're caught deliberately sabotaging company equipment,
Oh boy.
well, your company can throw the equivalent of the bringing the sport into disrepute clause at you.
Yeah, for once, that phrase is actually relevant and not just one thrown around on Twitter whenever someone doesn't like something in F1. It could very well be a case of that. And as Cam points out, Yamaha would never have released that sort of statement if it couldn't hold up in a court. The lawyers have had a say in that statement. Trust me. So yeah, more on that by the time we get to Silverstone, probably in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll see how that goes. But meanwhile, over in Tempelhof Airport, we had Formula E crowning its first ever world champion for the Season 7 finale. And this was a wild one.
The season finale of the FIA ABB Formula E World Championship produced yet more drama, fitting of its chaotic season, with Lucas di Grassi winning the first race by a nose ahead of Edo Mortara and Mitch Evans. It still left 14 men eligible to win the title in the final race on Berlin's reversed layout. And of the two of them, and two of them were immediately eliminated after Mitch Evans' car died on the grid, and he was rear-ended by Edo Mortara at 27G impact,
27 Gs, Ouch.
Driving into the rear of the Jaguar and fracturing a vertebrae in his back. Thankfully, both drivers were able to walk away. It immediately got more dramatic during the restart when Jake Dennis got caught out by Buemi in the braking zone and hit the wall, eliminating himself from title contention.
Correction. It was a mechanical failure. The rear axle locked and sent him into the wall. That's why there was that cloud of black smoke.
Oh, shit. And yeah. So all of a sudden, at that point, it's worth pointing out before King continues, Dennis was in the box seat at that point in time. And then next thing you know, as soon as the restart happens, he's in the wall, he's out of contention. Carry on, King, sorry.
Even under the green, the race had more heart-stopping moments, including an unnecessarily aggressive Nick de Vries, now in the championship box seat himself, almost collecting himself twice in battles with Pascal Wehrlein. In battles with Pascal Wehrlein, but it was Norman Nato becoming Formula E's 20th podium finisher in 2021, with Stoffel Van Dorn's 23rd and Nick de Vries' 23rd podium finish, and Nick de Vries finishing 8th to secure both championships for Mercedes EQ. Only for them to confirm today that they're leaving the series at the end of next season.
Because of course.
Now my point earlier, Petronas just dipped on one of their racing teams that they directly fund.
Well,
you think
Petronas doesn't sponsor Mercedes.
They don't sponsor Mercedes FE, but they do sponsor them in F1.
Not as much as they used to by a large margin.
Shout out Ineos.
I mean, Ineos certainly a third of the team now. They've probably got much more of a controlling stake than what Petronas used to have.
Yeah, and considering that Ineos themselves are an oil company.
One for another.
I just know them as being a bunch of bottlers in the America's Cup.
Yeah, that works too. But
in that statement, they doubled down on their commitment to F1. No, Mercedes isn't leaving F1. We can put that away for another month.
Yeah, I mean, gentlemen, what the hell was that for season finale? What was that? I mean, it was yet more carnage in an already carnage-filled Formula E season. But how was that climax for you guys?
Well, I think it boiled down to, hey, so many drivers can win this. So many drivers had nothing to lose by either pushing it to the limit, having, desperate moves, and, literally every overtake mattered. And everyone tried to find an overtake.
Yeah, I'd say, if not for shit like Evans stalling, Mortara hitting the back, I still think De Vries, with the pace that he had, because he was driving through the middle of the grid like a man possessed, like he wants to win this championship. I'm not going to say, but I think he wins the championship still. It's just closer than it ended up being, where 3 of your biggest contenders drop out before we even finish a green flag lap of racing.
We didn't even get a green flag straight's worth of racing and mechanical failures, and the resulting Carnage took out 3 of the people who had a realistic shot at the title.
Mitch Evans almost won this title without even finishing in the top 2 of a race.
But even in the first race, where just people couldn't keep up with the hectic pace of the race as a whole for the entire distance, and lost out on the championship because of that, like Diaz Techeetah.
Both cars suffered thermal problems while running 1-2, and they fell down the field. Attack mode was... we had the 8-minute attack mode in race 1, and it was mega powerful around this track.
Yeah. Who saw Rene Ross just like carving people up left and right while under attack mode?
Formula E's fastest man.
Fastest lap award winner, Rene Ross.
But that's the thing with an 8-minute attack mode, with that being your one shot to move up the field, you need to not only use that power effectively, but manage the temperature of your powertrain, or you're going to end up like Techeetah.
We joked about how, man, if this is as good as Techeetah are with their old powertrain to start the year, just imagine how good they'll be with the new one, and it wasn't all that reliable at a few stages this year.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, it was a ridiculous climax in the sense of, because we had 2 major incidents that took 3 of the runners out. Nick De Vries, like, knowing he was in the box seat, like, was dive bombing the shit out of people. Like, him and Pascal Wehrlein were rubbing shoulders.
Audacity to claim after the race people weren't respecting my championship position on track. Like, dude, you were fucking if-gap carring half the field.
He dive bombed the shit out of Pascal Wehrlein, and I'm like, guys, I think I'm a target out here. Really? Like, okay.
Yeah, and once the mechanical failures took out Dennis and Evans and Mortara, and obviously get well soon for him.
Yeah, indeed.
27 Gs doesn't sound like a lot until it's right up through the bottom of the car into your driver's seat.
Ow.
And once that was over, De Vries basically just had to finish. Even when Stoffel was leading the race, he was still 3 points down on De Vries for most of the event.
Yeah. And then there was still that awful moment where they're 3 wide with both Mercs in as the bread in a Lotterer sandwich, and I'm just like, oh god, and it almost ended.
Germany's about to fumble this bag.
I was like, oh god, are we gonna have like a Formula 1 Catalunya 2016 moment right here where both Mercs take each other out? And like, it was complete chaos.
Stuttgart was on track to catch a hard L in that incident.
Yeah.
Cooler heads prevailed.
Cooler heads prevailed. Nick De Vries wins the title. Merckx wins the Formula E title. In
no way the way we thought they were gonna after they dominated the opening round.
Indeed. We've talked about it for this series up and down over the course of the season. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. But Merckx was so up and down at one point. Jaguar was up and down at one point. We thought Virgin might get involved, the Vision team in there up at some point. Like,
Dre, hit me with this stat. How many points were available in this championship?
450.
How many did the winner win with?
99.
Doing it for Jeff Burton, 99.
Less than 100.
Carl Edwards,
less than 100 points.
Less than 4 race wins worth.
Jorge Lorenzo.
Nick De Vries won the title with about 22% of the available points on offer. He only finished in the points on 7 out of the 15 races over the course of the season, and he won the title by 5. Because of course he did. I'll give King this. At the top of the year, when we did our season preview, he thought there were 7 teams that had a genuine chance of winning this title, and on the final race of the year, 6 teams were still eligible to win the Constructors' Championship. He was absolutely right. Well done, Ryan Eric King.
9 teams broke double-digit points.
Yeah. 6 teams were eligible to win the team's title in the final race. 6! Like, it was ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And I know a lot of people are going to be split on the format of the championship and whether it's a good thing or not. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but we have to talk a little bit first about the breaking news that came out today. That there was rumblings already in the air about this around the Berlin's weekend, but we got confirmation today, as we record this on August 18th, that Mercs are indeed quitting the series at the end of next season, Season 8. I mean, it's the third major manufacturer to quit the series in the last year, or inevitably quit the series, or announced they're quitting the series. Or sadly, BMW and Audi, that was their final ever race. I mean, gentlemen, what impact do you think it will have on the series as a whole? Because no matter which way you slice it, it ain't good when 3 manufacturers are quitting in a year.
No, it's not good.
That's you remember that mass exodus back in the '08 recession where it seemed like every manufacturer apart from Ferrari was about to leave. It kind of feels like that.
I think it's a two-pronged problem. I'll go with the outside factor first. Sports car racing, where Audi's bread was buttered for a long time, is now, you can now compete in the top class in a way that doesn't require Formula One level budgets.
It's cheap.
It's cheap. You get to run in America. You get to run overseas. And other people can do a lot of the work for you. And if they consider that that is a better place to spend their money and get return on investment for advertising dollars, then that's what they're going to do. Definitely, I think that's the case with BMW and Audi. Mercedes obviously doesn't have a sports car program.
Well, they've got their GT3 programs, but that's different.
Yeah, but
that's level.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with the future of the ACO and their GT platform. We could get some Mercs back at Le Mans within the next couple of years, albeit not fighting for the overall.
Yeah, they decided they were done with that.
I think the internal problem is one where Mercedes won this title, right?
Yeah.
That's their name is on the trophy. Can't take that away from them. Does it really feel like they won? Does it feel like anyone won a championship?
It's a strange one.
Does it feel like any team was out there proving that they had the best technology and were winning a bunch of races and had big TV time with their logo right front and center on the car?
It was probably a bit of a hodgepodge, certainly.
I can't imagine it's a good look for Mercedes that they won this championship despite spending a lot of the year running down in like 15th and 16th place.
Personally, I don't think that's an issue. I think the real issue at heart here is that Formula E markets itself as being a new championship for a younger audience, and that audience has not appeared. And while TV viewership has naturally increased over time, it has not increased at the rate Formula E expected or any of the teams in the championship as expected. And you can even gauge this on social media where on, say, Twitter, Formula 2 still has more Twitter followers than Formula E, which that's a big issue when the audience you're going after is younger and on social media. You'd assume that, we could get more followers on social media than Formula 2.
Well, I think that it's just, there's the visibility factor just isn't there because of the factors at play, and that the audience hasn't appeared. I
don't think that running, say, midfield even matters. If they're not watching the race, it doesn't matter where in the field you are.
Yeah, it hurts whatever viewership you might get. But they recommitted to Formula One, right?
No, I would go back. If someone's dominating at the front of the field, this championship's over before we even get to the last weekend.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. but they just recommitted to Formula One, right?
Right.
Look how much money they keep saying they make from Formula One and the marketing value of that team.
It's in the
and
billions.
it's just not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, King's absolutely right on this one. I was going to make the point about the growth of the series in general. TV networks in the UK, and this is one of the bigger demographics of Formula E, they're not exactly clamouring over to watch this race. Most of Formula E's UK coverage was on BBC iPlayer, online streaming. Like the
It's
season
on Father
finale was on, like,
It's on Father Beeb, but it's not on, like, BBC One.
Let's put it this way.
Not even
the
that
BBC
long.
were more invested in putting money into cricket, and that's saying something because cricket is dead amongst young people.
We saw dude get hit in the nuts twice.
Yeah, and people are actually going out of their way to watch the 100 on TV because it is aiming at young people and it seems to be working. Formula E doesn't have that luxury, and certainly not in the UK. And King mentioned the point about Formula 2. Just perspective, say, just as a general gut feeling, I see way more tweets and action about a Formula 2 weekend than I do for a Formula E weekend on places like Twitter. Like, there has been a young surge of viewers in Formula 1, and its ladder as a subsequent result of that. I know a lot of people, it's not going to be the same for Formula 2 as it is for F1, but there's certainly a little bit of extra crossover there. Formula E just doesn't have that vibe in the UK, at least certainly where I'm sitting, on the other side of the pond. I don't get the impression that people are piling in to watch Formula E right now. It just isn't. And a lot of people are probably going to have to readjust before this generational shift we get next year.
I can definitely see that Formula E seems like it's run by a bunch of people that think that young people think that they know what they think, that, you know, they have an idea of what they think younger audiences who may be into motorsport want, but they don't always hit it on all fronts.
I think it's too... They've poured in quite a lot of chaos into the format inherently.
I love that.
And that can be fun sometimes, but it hasn't brought... I think it's been proven that's not necessarily what people want. And it hasn't brought the viewers.
I think the big overarching problem with Formula E is that... Give me 1 second.
That's cool.
No worries, man. Take your time.
Sorry, that's NEOM winner Alejandro Agag calling. Hey, Alejandro Agag won a made-up award presented by the Hyphen.
Yeah. My cheesesteak is... Give me 5 minutes on the cheesecake.
I think the big overarching problem with Formula E is that it doesn't matter how entertaining or not entertaining the product is, if no one is interested in who's racing in the championship, then no one's gonna watch. Like, us as diehard motorsport fans are fans of the drivers in the championship, but most, almost if not all the drivers are, I would say, kind of workhorse drivers, where, like, they're first and foremost professionals at what they do. They will race wherever they're assigned, and they'll do it well. Mm-hmm. And there are not that many star drivers, you could say, in Formula E.
And you see it play out with fan boost, because who wins it every single race? Carryovers from Formula 2, Formula 1, and on rare occasion, from the golden age of LMP1H and WEC. That's it.
Yeah. Do you miss the days of Degrassi after Wemmy?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you'd say the carryover from that golden age, like, people mainly remember them from Formula 1.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember Lucas Degrassi from Formula 1? Come on.
You'd be surprised, but yes, they do.
They do.
I don't acknowledge them.
Just memory of that.
They still count. But no, he's absolutely right. Who's the, like, Formula 1, and I know it's not a fair comparison, but Formula 1 are so, and the people that are watching it are so much more infused behind the driver personalities now than ever before in this sport. From Hamilton to Vettel to Norris, depending on what costume he's wearing, George Russell, etc., etc. Right? Formula E doesn't have that. Not really. Not
Like, they don't have a household name.
Yeah, like, no offense to, obviously, all the F1 people we mentioned who've come over, but they weren't stars in F1 to begin with. Like, the reason why they win fan boosts is mainly just name recognition.
Yeah, people recognize... Yeah, that's that guy that got bodied, like, 19-0 by Alonso.
Yeah. It's like, the biggest name that they've ever had compete in FE full-time was Felipe Massa. And people pretty much followed Felipe's every move in FE. And when he left, there was clearly a void that was, made and never filled.
No. Norman Nosso just doesn't hit
one
like
big
that,
dunking session, really.
Yeah.
No, like Norman Nato just hits differently in that sense, unfortunately. Sorry, Norman, it's not your fault, but it's just one of those things. Look, there's not a household name, there's not a big recognisable star. Influencers are not going to move the needle like people think they do. Trust me, I've seen it with the 100. They've tried to get a bunch of social media influencers into that. It's not that. It's been the cricket that's got people into it, to use the comparison. But you can see there's parallels about how they're trying to get new viewers involved. It's not working on that level. And even having a completely chaotic championship, one where nobody had a clue who was going to win the titles until around about the 5 minutes to go in the race when Nick de Vries stopped dive-bombing people. Like, it didn't, if anything, it probably split the room on whether we should have a format like this, because a lot of people didn't like the fact that no one could stand out from the crowd in Formula E this year. And that's what I wanted to put to you guys as well, because, like, I want your overall thoughts on the on this season overall before we wrap it up, because
I'd say overall, most of Formula E's good seasons, which are more than half, which, again, is impressive. Most of Formula E's seasons are kind of highlighted by either shock wins or someone able to string together multiple wins. This season has been highlighted by people getting disqualified, mass accidents, black flags. Like, it was unpredictable for all the wrong reasons. Other seasons are unpredictable for great reasons.
We've had seasons defined by, for a couple of them, defined by, in the second half of the season, great title fights between, people like Degrassi and Buemi. This year there's just so much chaos and so much of the unknown that it got overwhelming. To the point where I had trouble just following what the hell was going on. Pour in a dash of rules that probably shouldn't be there, rules that need to be enforced better, and disqualifications seemingly because a team pulled the FIA's pants down.
Yeah. And, especially when, again,
too much.
Looking back at prior seasons, someone usually takes the points lead because they had just won a race. This season, it's more like someone took the points lead, not because they won the race, it's because the previous the previous points leader put his car in the wall.
Or for much of the year, gets caught up by the group qualifying and ends up being stuck in 14th with no way to pass anybody.
Yeah, when there was much more of a gap between the top teams and everybody else, group qualifying made sense. Now that everybody's so bunched up together, then it doesn't. And we talked about that.
Well, I'd say a bigger issue is that, it doesn't even matter that the grid's mixed up. We're early on in, for Formula E's entire history, overtaking hasn't been that much of an issue. If you're faster than someone, you've always been able to pass them. Now it's genuinely becoming an issue where it's difficult to overtake
many of the cars
people.
Are too equal.
Yeah. And you get a lot of these dead zones in races where cars just can't pass each other and they're just following each other nose to tail, and it's not entertaining. And as you and Cam both alluded to, it got too much at certain points. It was just you couldn't run. It was actually genuinely difficult to write scripts for this show on occasion because there was no coherent story sometimes. It was just Nick de Vries won the first race. Second race, Nick de Vries is in the wall. I'm like, oh, it was what's going on?
It triggered a lot of desperation moves, and it triggered what every race, it felt like the top 6 in the championship would flip because they flipped in qualifying. And then it would flip back and forth and back, and eventually your head feels like it's going to explode.
And we've barely even mentioned incidents like Valencia that went mainstream viral for all the wrong reasons because of how awful a finish that was and how it made a complete mockery of the series.
And at the same time, right?
A lot of people were not happy with Mercedes after that.
Yeah. And at the same time, right? This series still got what is still probably my race of the year and the proof of everything right with this series at Monaco.
Oh, Monaco. We'll always have Monaco, which is a sentence I never thought I would say.
So there's something great here lying beneath the surface, but it's been buried by rules and format and bad driving standards, and it all just it corrupts what is fundamentally a good product into something that, at the end of the day, just becomes hard to follow.
Yeah.
We're really into this sport, as you might be able to tell, and it's hard for us sometimes.
Yeah. Look, we're saying this as people that like Formula E overall, especially in King's case. But this is a series that overall we really, really like, and we want it to do well. We're not saying this because we want Formula E to go up in a big puff of smoke. I would love for this series to flourish alongside some of the other bigger series that we cover on this show. But there are issues that need to be addressed, and it is not a good sign when manufacturers are bailing. It's not a good sign when your series' most prominent moment, maybe ever, was a farce in Valencia. And
no, honestly, I think it took something like this happening for them to take notice. Because when they see stuff like this happening at Valencia, it's like, oh, look at all the interaction we're getting.
They know. Yeah. They know it's not good interaction.
And, it takes something like this, they don't know it's not good interaction. They don't care. Interaction's interaction, and it's...
Numbers are numbers.
Yeah.
Getting roasted is getting posted.
And, you could tell that they didn't really, seemingly tell they didn't notice when they're talking about, when we move on to the Gen 3 cars, a bunch of the teams and manufacturers that committed for Gen 3 said that they wouldn't mind starting a B team to run a support series with the Gen 2 cars. And that makes sense. But the thing is, you're talking about drastically expanding the series, and I don't think that the Gen 2 support series idea is a bad idea, but it's there are fundamental problems you need to fix.
You're running before you can walk. And I think that something that's very important to note here is this is season 7.
No.
Yeah. Year 7.
We are still having series in its infancy problems, and it's time that Formula E as a whole grew up and got a boot up its backside a little bit. Mm-hmm. To start fixing some of these problems.
Because there are a lot of people out there that will never take this series seriously ever because of some of the incidents that have happened over the course of the last year or so. And, But
even if this was a more serious series, they wouldn't take it serious anyway, because they'll make up some excuse about how they hate electric vehicles, and they'll say it's always artificial even when it isn't.
But that's the thing, and that people are already apprehensive about this because it's electric racing. So
it's doing itself no favors.
Yeah, it's doing itself no favors in terms of trying to build a core audience.
Eventually, you know what? It doesn't matter what silly, outdated views some people might have towards something. If you put out a good product, people will come.
Yeah.
If you continue to evolve that product, people will come. And it feels like FE it feels like they've tried to evolve in the wrong places when they've already got a solid racing product when everything goes well. Yeah. And it's time that they really look at, okay, where do we go next? And how do we fix what's wrong right now? Because there are problems that need to be fixed before they can take that next step.
We will have to wait and see how that plays out. But like I said, I don't want to anyone sends any one of us angry emails. We like this series. We really
want to see it do well.
I don't think we're going to get angry emails from anyone.
Just making sure. The point is that, we like the series, it just needs a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
It's good.
But,
as long as the steps in the right direction don't dilute it from being like it still has to be exciting.
Indeed.
I think that can happen. I don't want
Absolutely.
this series to become another run-of-the-mill routine championship where somebody just wins half or 2/3 or 3/4 of the race and, it's a processional championship through and through. I don't want that. I think there are definitely places where this series can improve.
Indeed.
But I do like a little bit of chaos sometimes. I live for it.
Who doesn't?
A little bit of chaos is good. Too much chaos.
Yeah, a little chaos is a treat.
Yeah, like
when the chaos
negative...
when the chaos becomes the story, that's when you've got a problem. Quite frankly,
the way the series has its system of negative feedback loops, a little bit too negative. There is a middle ground that you can find that you put in the right amount of chaos.
Indeed.
Not the whole bottle.
Right, that'll just about do it for this week's show. We'll be back next week to talk some 24-hour race in France somewhere. That'll be fun. We'll also be talking IndyCar at Gateway as well. Some French fella's first time in an oval. Apparently,
Did you
that's
know
gonna
that
move the
Romain
needle for a few
Grosjean's
people.
running an oval?
No, I didn't hear. First time for everything. So that'll be a Gateway on. So that'll be for IndyCar as well. Sadly, we didn't have quite enough time to talk about IndyCar in this race, but oh boy, Alex Palou's engine blowing up. Oh boy, bringing the title group
And
right
still
back
having
together.
a relatively healthy lead.
Will Power's got the monkey off his back. He's got the piano off his back. 40 wins.
Indeed,
And then it got upstaged by whatever shit happened in that NASCAR race.
Less said about that shit, the better.
It took an actual track disintegration to stop Hendrick driver number 5.
Yeah,
We're getting desperate here, folks.
You can't run that every week. But anyway, point is, Le Mans Gateway next week. And basically, you can find us before we get out of town. YouTube.com/Motorsport101. Subscribe if you haven't already. Facebook.com/Motorsport101. Twitter at Motorsport_101. Our personal handles at Harrison101HD, at RJ O'Connell, at Ryan Eric King, at CBuckley917. Instagram Motorsport101pod. And you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/Motorsport101. $5 for all our audio shows, 10 for the video, and live access as well. We'll be back next week, but until then, I've been Dre Harrison, they've been RJ O'Connell, Ryan Eric King, and Cam Buckley, and until next time, sayonara.
Later, y'all!
Bye.
All my homies hate Jim Glickenhaus.
There's exactly one slander-free entry at Le Mans, and it's SRT 41. Everybody else are a bunch of bums.
The SCG 007 is a bitch car designed by bitches and driven by one big bitch in Pipo Durrani.
We have the Ferrari 330 P4 at home.
Stop insulting the P4 like that. Stop it.